And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So, in this week's episode, we'll be talking about uh, more technology than we can handle. First, let's see here. We'll be talking about the big news that has happened this recent week with regards to how tech giants like Google and even Apple is taking over the world with their dominance in their App Store or Google Play Store or even Apple App Store. There are a lot of consumers that should be concerned, or even developing devs that create apps for their platform. Some say because of the 30% fee, even as much as if you look at Epic's contention here, should they be paying 30%, lower, whatever the case may be. Obviously, the dominance of those two companies have been a growing issue here. Step in governments. So that's the role of any government in any nation, that to protect the interests of nation, what are they supposed to do? Now, it seems that the United States is lagging behind, even though they're currently in an antitrust court case with those companies mentioned. Now, one country in particular is South Korea is going up against those two tech giants. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Tesla, which is in this case, they're not just what do you call this, contented in this dominating in the EV market, going to space with SpaceX, and now there's plans from Mr. Elon Musk to create the first ever humanoid, so to speak. So the Tesla bot that they're calling it. So they have big ambitions, especially for Mr. Musk. But question is, will it get any traction here? So we'll take a look at that. So it's not just the Tesla company is developing a robot per se, like how the film in iRobot where Will Smith, was battling with many robots there. Anyway, Disney company is also in development of creating a exoskeleton device so that they could create a better experience for I won't say viewers, but people who frequently visit their theme parks. So they're calling it the Project Exo. Uh, and if you think about who is synonymous with robotics here, is Boston Dynamics with their famous what do you call this, famous Spot the dog. They come out with a new version, totally different, that looks more humanoid than an animal here. It's called Atlas. So see what's that all about. And next we'll be talking about also how travelers who think that because you're simply vaccinated, you're home free, but that's not the case. And if you tested positive, you're stuck in wherever region or country you're staying right now. Questions, can you get back home? Well, never fear. There's always a business opportunity. This is where Covac Global comes in. So we'll talk about that. And lastly, who thought that riding a roller coaster would be dangerous? Well, it's exciting, but I would say dangerous to the point that people would get injured here. So stay tuned for that part as well. Anyway, so for our first major topic is it regards the issue that Google and Apple is embroiled in with regards to how they deal with their consumers, how they take advantage by eliminating competition with their platform. Even though Apple and Google is saying that they're doing this to the betterment of the consumer, well, we just have to wait and see if that's true or not. But others are contesting, it's a complete opposite. But anyway, according to the article here at Reuters.com, stated that South Korea is set to curb Apple's commission's dominance here. Now, in particular, if you're Google here, you should be concerned here. Now, for the longest time that Google is partnering with, one of the smartphone makers, Samsung, which is based in Korea or South Korea, has been paying them billions of dollars to not develop a similar to Play Store, so it will not go up against them, and to the detriment of many consumers, because if you're a developer, you're stuck with just either iOS or Android, in this case Google, so you have to pay the commission fee. Now they're saying that there a better way for consumers to access it. Now Google or even Apple is saying that if you use other platforms, it's not as secure. But at the end of the day, there should be a choice for consumers to decide whether where do they want to pay. Is it directly through the companies or games or whatever apps website, or use Google's Play Store as a form of payment? But if you have no choice, then obviously the power or control lies in Google here. Anyway, according to South Korea, they're likely to bar or to ban requiring software developers to use their payment system, which is, I think, it's about time. That's why the US is always late in the game. You also have Europe has been concerned with regards to how dominant those tech giants are. So effectively, they're going to stop them from charging commissions on their in-app purchases, which generates those two companies millions or billions of dollars here. And obviously, they're calling it the anti-Google law. So the app store operators with dominant market positions, namely Google and Apple, will have will put to a screeching halt if that were to be implemented. Now, Apple is stating that the bill will put users who purchase digital goods from other sources at risk or fraud. Obviously, they would say that because it would be detrimental to their business model here. And they go on to say that it will undermine their privacy protection. Yeah, that's another problem with Apple, with their planning of recent update for the spying or looking into your pictures with regards to child abuse, because it creates a precedent. So where's the privacy protection here? No matter how their PR spins it in terms of fail safety protection, but it only takes just one mishap to turn it into something catastrophic here. But going back here, so Apple is saying that it makes it difficult to manage their purchases. Not really. It just only affects your bottom line here if that were to happen. They go on to say that the user's trust in App Store purchase will decrease as a result of this proposal. I wouldn't say trust will be lessened, but it will give users, in my case us, an option to look for viable ways. So actually, that's one of the main contention that Epic is trying to levy here, that they should be given opportunity, whether they pay through the iOS or App Store or in other means. you know it's the discretion of the consumer, not the discretion of the companies that mentioned here. Anyway, they go on to say that leading to fewer opportunities for over almost 500,000 registered developers. But again, it goes back to the fee that you're charging. And you say you're going to help those developers by reducing the fee, but majority of those big companies or developing companies earns more than $1 million, and you charge them 30%, and obviously that's a direct, you can call it a cash cow, source revenue generator for the company. So obviously you do not want to lose that stream, and that's why you're saying all of those things. And but they go on to say that Korea, who have earned more than 8.5 or almost 9 trillion to date because of Apple. Now obviously this will hurt Apple more rather than the consumer. If let's say a third company, let's say maybe Samsung, were to open an app store for Samsung that would compete directly with Google here, which is obviously they don't want that to happen. Anyway, so the question here is, what is the benefit, or who stands to benefit from this? Is it just the company, which they have already generated millions of billions for their company, for the shareholders? How about the consumers? If it stands to benefit the consumer, then I'm all for it, right? Until Google and Apple can provide actual evidence that it's the complete opposite, which they haven't made a strong case either way. The fact that they're only saying that the 30% fee is necessary to continue to to safeguard the users here. But as the evidence or in previous examples have shown that there are still bad actors in your platform, and you haven't carved out or removed those bad actors from misusing the platforms here, from selling illicit, I won't say illicit, but uh, not safe content from the user, and similar, how Amazon is treating their sellers in their platform, right? You have the technology, the resources to stop those bad actors, but it still exists. The fact that those companies are saying that they have stopped thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of bad actors, meaning there are loopholes in your system that you haven't even fixed. So question here is, how safe are the users here? So finding an alternative way or means is always important, especially for consumer. Choice is always important. If you're left with one, companies like Google and Apple, there's no reason for them to innovate to improve their product. That's why in the case of Intel, it's another good example where, for the longest time they've been at the top of CPU manufacturing. Then AMD came along, they were still lagging behind, but now at present, they're now competing with Intel. So no, Intel now has to innovate. They had such a big gap in terms of profit or market share. Now obviously it's now neck and neck in a sense. So question here is, what's the benefit for regular consumers like us? Anyway, so Apple has and Google has been facing global criticism, and the keyword is global. So it's not just in a particular region or country here. With regards to the software developers requirement to pay the 30% fee as mentioned earlier. And this goes not just to just any apps, and it transfers to the gaming industry as well. That's why we're Epic Games is trying to contest here. Now, obviously, it's not as if Epic is trying to help consumers here. Obviously, it's trying to protect its bottom line here, that they should be given an opportunity. If you want to purchase their games directly, then you should be allowed to, rather than have a cut on their sales, so to speak here. So question here is, what will the governments decide in the future? Time can only tell. And obviously, option for me is always better than no option at all. Actually, it was mentioned here, Naomi Wilson, who is the Vice President Policy for Asia at Information Technology Industry Council, she stated that the legislation would violate South Korea's multilateral and bilateral trade commitments. So obviously, there are still legalities that they have to work through. And even in the European Union, they're proposing a Digital Markets Act regarding the App Store Commission here. So the question is, will it gain traction, or will it falter, or or will it come out of anything to help secure the interest of the consumer here? Actually, we also have uh, uh, Android, one of the Android makers, which is Samsung Electronics or Samsung phones, uh, relies or have generated in terms of a little over $5 billion in 2019 alone. So obviously, if you're going to create a different platform, make sure it's a viable one. Otherwise, if it's a inferior product, obviously consumers will always go back to whichever product is best for them. Anyway, speaking of technology still, so we were talking about how Mr. Elon Musk, who is a visionary, is always looking for ways to improve our society by not just introducing the electric vehicle, making it possible for consumers to purchase one, going into space by offering SpaceX there, and then now he has bold plans of using his one of the company's Neuralink to create a first ever Tesla bot, which would you know maybe someday replace human beings, like similar to how the film I, Robot from Will Smith's film. So you have an assistant that is going to do the basic chores for you or on your behalf, so the human or the humanoid could focus more on other stuff. But how far is it? I think maybe not in our lifetime, so we have to wait and see. But anyway, so the question here is, when Tesla presented the inaugural AI Day, which is a Tesla bot, as you can see here, it's a 5'8" bot Okay, so obviously, can it do or replicate what a human being can do in terms of physical ability and mental capability here? Now, obviously, it's still a work in progress, but they're making headway in terms of its neural capability with their neural company, and as well as they have the Dojo advanced supercomputer being able to think uh, like how a human being would think maybe in the future. But obviously, Tesla is arguably one of the world's biggest robotics company. Yes, because not just of their cars that they have, obviously providing a sentient robot like on wheels is one of the goals for Mr. Musk here. And also the goal of with self-full driving computer. Actually, the car is not yet there, but that's another discussion. But anyway, it will only keep getting better and evolving, as he mentioned. And the Dojo supercomputer and neural network, if they can integrate it effectively, will obviously be tremendous here. Imagine a world where mundane tasks are left for robotics here. But the question here is, will people become too lazy at a certain point here and create more problems than solutions? But maybe for another lifetime there. Anyway, understanding how to navigate through the world, it kind of makes sense to put that on humanoid form. Now, obviously, it makes it more relatable if it's in humanoid form, because if it looks kind of odd, people are not as receptive as what they see. If it's like a box or an odd shape, so to speak, that's why in movies they try to replicate human features. I think the film in Bicentennial Man, the film of Robin Williams, right? They try to uh, assimilate or physical characteristics of a humanoid, a human, and have internal powered by robotics and computers and so forth. Anyway, Mr. Musk goes on to say it is intended to be friendly and navigate through a world built for humans. Obviously, convenient is the name of game. So they've been trying to push for self-driving vehicles, which is still far, far away, but hopefully within our lifetime. But who knows? Anyway, the question here is, with this discussion or evolvement of technology, will it get to a point that you can see an actual robot walking on the streets, doing mundane stuff? And obviously there are ethical issues here, social issues, ramifications. Who will be liable if, let's say, for the sake of conversation, if that robot were to do harm on other people? Who will be liable here? Is it the owner, or is it the company who made it? Just like what Tesla is going to be embroiled in the future with regards to their Tesla EVs, with regards to their self-proclaiming fully self-driving vehicle here. Anyway, so what's interesting here, obviously Tesla is making a lot of inroads in terms of making a difference in our world, not just being an automaker here, but also being able to produce a humanoid robot, so to speak. But obviously other companies have been trying to do this, so it's not just Tesla here. You also have Honda's famous Asimo robot. I haven't seen that robot. Maybe next time when I visit their country, I hopefully I can see the actual robot in person. Anyway, obviously there are other companies, and in our next topic we'll be talking about one of the famous company for producing Spot the dog. They have a new machine that they're offering here. Anyway, the question here is, what will be the future look like? Will it be sooner rather than later, or will it be eons later, before what we can see in the films will come to fruition in our daily lives here? Anyway, speaking of robotics, so a company like Disney, obviously this is known for offering entertainment through films and theme parks for kids, families to enjoy, right? So obviously to get people interested and keep on going back to their theme parks, they need to always find ways to innovate, to get those people coming back over and over. And I've been to some of their theme parks before the pandemic, and I think one of the unique features that in Japan that they have is the Disney Sea theme, which is totally different in other countries, whether it's in China or in the United States. And take note, United has some of the biggest or one of the biggest theme parks in the world with Disney World compared to their Disneyland theme in California. But anyway, According to the article here at cnbc.com, Disney is developing an exoskeleton that could bring the Hulk to its theme park. So it's looking like, is it similar to how what do you call this? The film by Tom Cruise, I forgot, where he keeps on dying. I forgot the title. But anyway, so he's using an exoskeleton suit. Obviously, that's for fighting, but this is more for entertainment purposes. So let's see here. So Disney engineers, that they're calling it, is looking ways to create a bigger, better attractions for its theme park. Obviously, especially with the pandemic that's happening currently, they're looking ways to generate or attract uh, uh, visitors to visit their park. Anyway, so they're calling it Project Exo or Exoskeleton, which is have been in development for the past 2 years. So bringing biggest Disney character to life at its theme park here. So let's see if I can show you. There you go. So you can see here that the exoskeleton. So obviously it's a gear that you would wear. Now, how do you incorporate that to the different activities within the theme park? Is it for interaction with let's say with kids, so you can take photo ops instead of just wearing a regular costume? But obviously, if you have big ambitions, maybe let's say, I think they were trying to use the character Hulk. Obviously, for Hulk to be believable, he has to be gargantuan in terms of scale compared to a regular human being. So having this technology is important, or maybe they have a team. I think I don't know. I haven't been to the Avengers team that they have. Maybe they have a showcase where the exoskeleton can be utilized there if there's a show, or maybe there's an effects. I don't know, but maybe there are a lot of possibilities. Obviously, the key here is how do they incorporate those technologies in their theme parks here. And obviously, Disney owns the rights for Star Wars as well as the Marvel Cinematic Universe here. So the sky's is the limit here, as mentioned here. Uh, According to an Imagineer, fiddled with a giant articulated green hand using a mechanism attached to a metal gauntlet to pinch two massive fingers and a thumb around a tiny plastic. So you can, similar to how Mr. Jim Henson, plays with his puppets in the puppet show. In this case, obviously in a bigger scale here, and obviously utilizing different characters in the Marvel universe. Maybe a big Ant-Man is another. Hulk, as mentioned. You can consider even who else? Yeah, even Thanos, one of the popular, I would say popular, known characters in that universe. So they go on to mention that obviously you can see in the photo that you can walk around with it using stealth. So obviously it's going to be hot if you're in the inside fiddling with it. But the point here is it gives you better immersion. So when you visit the theme park, not only do you see Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and typical characters, obviously you can leverage other characters as well here. Imagine Spider-Man is slinging from one place to another. It's not just in a costume per se here. So obviously for the R&D team, having a full body exoskeleton system is going to, has a lot of possibilities in terms of what it can, how it can affect the user experience, in the long run here. Anyway, where was it? Can't see. There you go. Okay, and they go on to say, obviously their goal is not just to create just one character, but to design numerous. So obviously, flexibility is what they're looking for here, so that they can obviously maximize the technology that they've invested upon, and hopefully it would be enough to, you can just imagine a big Ant-Man running around in the theme park. So obviously kids would be excited to see that and run away as well. But the Disney chief engineer Leslie Evans goes on to say that one of the things that is exciting about the project is that characters are a big way that we can uh, bring our lands to life, and having these gigantic characters that guests are going to be able to see from far away. Now, obviously, how big they want to create it will be depending on the available technology and the safety here, obviously, has to be kept in mind. Actually, another one that they mentioned here that they can bring to life is one of their characters from Big Hero 6, Baymax, if you're familiar. So the red blob. So, but the question is, can they replicate the audio? I think it's not just the actions, the movements, but the voice. If they can create a synthesizer of sorts that would mimic the actual actor's voice, or in this case, Baymax voice, I think that would create a better immersion for many visitors there. And obviously, at the end of the day, for a theme park to survive, you always have to keep on innovating. That's why you have theme parks in Universal Studios, especially in Japan. They have one of the best themes, the Harry Potter theme. So a lot of people flock to that location because it's the immersion, not just the rides themselves. Even though it's summer, it's the theme is always it's snowing and so forth. So how do you continue innovating? So obviously you have to spend a ton of money, and hoping that despite the pandemic, people would still continue to visit their theme parks, whether it's Disney or in this case it's Universal Studios, so people can enjoy seeing their favorite characters come to life here. Actually, they go on to mention they have another project. It's called Project Kiwi. They're going to focus on making a prototype for a young Groot. So obviously there's a young Groot, and there's also a an adult Groot. So the possibilities endless depending on the films that they want to showcase later on, or use some of the original characters they've already shown in the films as well. So the possibility is limitless, so to speak here. And it's not just that, they could go to other franchises as well. And obviously, pushing the boundaries is important here, so that you can get more interested goers there. It's not just the regular visitors, but also new visitors that, if you go to, let's say, the United States, and if you're going to visit Disneyland, it's a must go to place here, or whether it's in Japan or even in China here. And what's interesting, the theme park has attracted around the world a little over 150 million visitors. So that's a lot of people. So the question here is, with what's happening with the pandemic, will it get to the same levels here, or will it take longer before we could say a new normal here, so to speak? Even I would like to visit the Disney World theme park with my kids, but obviously with the restrictions, the ongoing spread of the virus with the Delta variant is kind of concerning. So, maybe next year or next year. So, by then, what will happen to those businesses? So, hopefully, things could turn out much quicker than anticipated. Anyway, continuing with robotics here. So, we were talking about how Tesla is trying to introduce the Tesla bot here. Then you have Disney's Exo project here, and one of my favorite companies that that's into robotics is Boston Dynamic here. Now they're known for their Spot the Dog, a robotic mechanical type that can do a lot of things for commercial use, obviously, in particular for industrial use. So to make it easier or safe for employees. Now, they in this article at Boston Dynamics, they say that their new robot can leap, bound, and even do backflips here. So let's see here. So the name of the robot that we have here is Atlas here. So Boston Dynamic engineers have developed a new movement inspired human behaviors by pushing the humanoid robot to its limit. So I think this is what Tesla is trying to replicate, and as you can see, it looks humanoid, but obviously still a long ways before you could actually say it could actually mimic human behavior here. But it's a very good start here if you look at their behavior here. So let's take a closer look. So you can see it's jumping. They were able to actually jump in the video. So let's see, you can find the video here. There you go. So you can see their movements here, like human-like movements, so to speak, right? And what's astonishing is the improvements that they have made in this short time that they're able to provide, making routines, jumping, running, doing backflips, traversing different obstacles. Now, obviously, this has been rehearsed because they can only program certain activities here. But the question here is, uh, can they do actual or mimic actual movements now? But based on the initial videos that they posted, especially in YouTube, it looks tremendous here. So the possibility is getting closer, but the question is, how much further are they going to continue? Now, they also mentioned that there have been a lot of headaches that they have to deal with, in terms of the trial and error, the heartaches in terms of obviously programming it is one thing, but being able to think for themselves is another here. That's why you need a lot of computing power, advancement in technology to be able to do that, because as human beings, we're very special in a way. We're self-powered. We can do a lot of things without even actually thinking. Sometimes we take it for granted. That's why machines trying to replicate human capabilities is so difficult. The fact that they're trying to attempt it is an achievement on its own here. Anyway, so the question here is, building the foundation is important here. So obviously, in one of their videos they mentioned that being able to traverse slanted in an obstacle, so balancing your feet, you tend to take it for granted, but obviously for a machine that's a very difficult thing to do. And obviously managing it, providing programs, adjustments over and over to be able to mimic actual movement here. And obviously it's not just a technical issue, but a software issue at the end of the day. And to come to a point that it can actually do its movement on its own volition and with its own thinking, how far are we? But maybe it has more immediate application so that you can program mundane tasks, so for machines, or in this case the atlas, for them to do. So you could just imagine transferring heavy items from warehouses from one to another, or maybe assisting humans from especially if you're handicapped and so forth, right? So there may be technologies that can be utilized in the present, but having a fully humanoid replacement for human beings, maybe we're not yet there. But we'll see. One can only be hopeful. But the only way to move forward is obviously for companies to push and keep on pushing for more innovation and improvement. Such companies as you have Tesla as mentioned, Boston Dynamics is another, and obviously a lot more companies, up and coming and existing companies, who has been trying to push what technology can provide us here. Next we have here is, speaking of traveling around the world. Now obviously, some countries have already opened up, so people are going back to some normalcy, in a sense that people are trying to enjoy traveling again, going to different places or even countries, so to speak. But obviously with the Delta variant that it's out there, people are still apprehensive. But for others who have already been vaccinated, they are more comfortable branching out, right, so to speak. But with many cases still rising, even if you're vaccinated, whether you're young or old, you are still prone to getting the virus still, which it's difficult to say, should we be even going out and so forth. But anyway, despite those difficulties, a business is always very opportunistic, right? That if there's a need for those services, a business will thrive. And in this case, if you are to travel abroad and you got tested positive, so what would think you'll be stuck there forever or for some time, which is not a good deal. Here in an article here at cnbc.com, where they stated, unfortunately, business is blowing for companies that fly home COVID positive test travelers have a VC summer. So let's see here. As mentioned here, even if you're vaccinated, which is one of the examples in this article, and it still goes to show that you can still contract the virus, whether it's the original variant or it's the more contagious one, the what do you call this, the Delta variant here. And the question here is, what are we to do here? What are our options here? Are we stuck here? Can we do something about it? Obviously, many of us would prefer to go home or go to your respective hospitals in your area so you can get treated right away. And actually, the main more pressing issue, should people be traveling anywhere with regards to the safety here. And one of the issues here that brought about so many people are traveling now, if you get tested positive, you're more than likely stuck for quite some time. And getting back home is not as easy, because either if you want to charter a private jet, that's not going to work, or even a commercial plane, that's not going to work either, because they cannot accommodate positive patients here. So here comes in Global Vac here, a company that can cater to those people in need here, that can transport you to and from where you are and get you home safely here. Now, obviously, here you have to purchase membership fee, wherein a medical evacuation company that can respond to your need, and you don't have to pay a dime, which we'll talk about the fee there in a bit. Since obviously other air travel options are not certified for or considered called as air ambulances, so to speak here. So they don't have the staff, medical people to treat infected or tested positive individuals here. And what's interesting here, according to the company here, about say 85% of evacuees are returned home, whether they're false positive or maybe it's a mild case and so forth. So what's interesting here, the demand for their service has been growing steadily. So it used to be they handle 2 to 3 medical evacuations per month, has now significant increase to 12 to 20 individuals now. So you could just imagine, people, having the false sense of complacency even though you're vaccinated, that you may not get infected, and especially for people who are traveling to highly populated areas, or location, whether it's in the beach or travel destination, so to speak here. That's why if people insist on traveling abroad, then you will encounter these difficulties. And it's either you stay home or you pay up, so that when you do encounter this scenario, you're still secured that you can find a way to get back home or to the country where you belong here. And the membership has increased by 500% this year, significantly higher. So obviously there's a demand here, because people have been cooped up for so long. They want to travel, go out, and be able to do the normal things that they've been used to here. But the problem here is the highly contagious Delta variant, even for vaccinated people, can get infected as well. So that's the main issue here. That the question here is it a worthwhile investment? Because in terms of the fee here, it's astronomically expensive here. So how expensive it is? So an evacuation from Singapore to New York will cost you an upwards of $300,000. So if it's in pesos, it's going to cost you 15 million. So is it worth the risk of getting infected here, or you get stuck there, and then unless your company is paying for that, I don't know if it's a ideal situation here, because it is going to be expensive. And is it a risk cost benefit analysis if you were to think about it? But for some, if it's part of your business, then you have to travel, then you need to have this sort of insurance plan, so to speak, so that you don't get stuck in anywhere else. Anyway, lastly, for our last story, so we were talking about how one would think that in a theme park, roller coasters are part of the dynamic of having that excitement, that rush of you know falling in line, riding the roller coaster, the anticipation, the acceleration. No one would think that riding a roller coaster could get you injured here, but well, that's the case to what happened here. So according to the article here at insider.com, they go on to mention that the world's fastest roller coaster in Japan. I haven't been to this theme park. Maybe next time I could visit their theme park. Anyway, so the theme park was suspended after 4 reports of people breaking their necks. So you never want to hear someone breaking their necks or backs after riding it. So maybe they've gone a bit too far here. So anyway, let's see here. Anyway, so the roller coaster we're talking about is in Dodo Dodonpa in Fujiyoshida. Is that right? Fujiyoshida. I don't know which part in Japan is it. But anyway, so it was suspended because of where people were reported that were injured or having broken bones riding it. Now, question is what caused the injury here? Anyway, this is one of the main attractions here at Fuji Q Highland Amusement Park in Fuji Yoshida, as mentioned. So they're calling it super death. I don't know, you want to call a ride a super death, and people would willingly ride that roller coaster. Anyway, so it's calling itself the fastest accelerating roller coaster in the world. So maybe that's got something to do with the issue here. There's such a thing as law of diminishing return, right? The fast, it doesn't necessarily mean the faster it is, it's better, right? If it's too fast, a body can only take so much G's, or gravity will always win out, and our body will always suffer in the end. So how fast it is? It can go as fast as 112 miles per hour in just 1.5 seconds. So imagine that speed, that G-force that you'll encounter, and if your body's not well built for that one, which technically is, you'll have a difficult time surviving it, which what happened here. And you can see here in the photo, the diameter is 130 feet long, or round, so to speak. So obviously, when you loop it, when you're trying to move as fast, and with the G-force that it's attached to it, obviously the body can only tolerate so much here. So the question here is, why would they do this in the first place? Maybe to attract more attention, because being fast is not enough, but being the fastest is important, maybe. And what's interesting here is the roller coaster was built way back in 2001, so it's almost 2 decades here, or more than 2 decades. Anyway, it was modified from a modest 106 miles per hour to 112 just 4 years ago. So question here, was it necessary to begin with? Because thankfully there were only 4, but I think they have to reassess the safety of the ride here. Maybe they need to reduce the speed, so that you could just imagine. Thankfully, broken bones were only the issue here. What if fatalities were to happen because of that? Obviously no one wants that scenario here. Now, one of the speculations here that the injuries may have nothing to do with the speed, maybe caused by improper sitting. Now, obviously, riding, sitting properly in any rides on the theme parks, proper seating is important, or maybe the harness not worn properly. So maybe they have to recheck how the roller coaster seats are implemented, and maybe they need to redesign so that it's properly fastened, so that when you fasten it in front, so that it's properly secure, so no amount of movement, especially the sudden jolts moving forward, backwards, or sideways, will not affect your body here. uh, a rider, a woman in her 30s, was injured on that ride, as mentioned. So improper sitting here, so maybe they need to adjust, make it more tighter in sense, so that accidents like this can be avoided, should not happen in any time, in any scenarios here. So question is, are you looking forward to this ride? Maybe not so much for me here, but that's my taste here. Some are roller coaster junkie that wants to ride every roller coasters in the world, and as many times as they want here. Anyway, okay, that's another episode down. Thank you again for watching. For more business news, stay here with Business Focus Live. Help support the channel by hitting the like and subscribe button. Also, if you're interested in the articles, any of the articles that was discussed today, you can check out the full article. I'll leave the link in the description below. As always, I'll see you in the next one, same time. Actually, this week we didn't have the same time. I have to adjust it because I have an activity later, so I had to do it an hour earlier. But next week we'll go back to the same time, and then hopefully same channel still. Anyway, stay safe everyone, and take care.